Hey friends, what's up? It is Mina and welcome to another video on this YouTube channel, Nemina TD. I am a magical practitioner and a soul developer is how I would describe the things that I'm passionate about and the conversations that we have in this space. And if you are somebody who seeks out the divine, that looks for ways to enliven and advance your soul. If you're somebody who has a magical or energy-based practice and wants to look for ways to improve and grow within that space, if you're somebody that is focused on self-improvement, self-empowerment, sovereignty, some of those energies are pillars to what we will discuss on this YouTube channel and in all the videos in some aspect or another. I'm somebody that's multi-passionate, so there will be a plethora of different conversations from both the mystical, magical, woo-woo, and very practical tips, tricks, and practices that I myself put into place that work well for me. So just to give you a little 2-minute rundown on what we're about here. I have definitely struggled in the social media space. I would say that I've self-sabotaged my growth within this space a lot over the years. And I think that that's really upon my own reflecting and contemplating on the why behind that. It's really because I wanted to make sure that I'm here for the right reasons and that I don't lose sight of the purity of my aim. The direction, and I just saw two when I said that, the direction of my aim. That doesn't mean that my path of sharing of my spiritual and magical soul and practices and the self-sabotage that went along with removing access from myself to other was healthy or the best way to go about it, but it's just the path that I chose in this life. I'm a young woman, a young single cat mom, as you can see, of 38, and age in 2026, at the time of me recording this video, I really am coming to the belief is a choice. And so I feel like it was really important for me to take some time to really hold space with what is true and aligned and important for myself instead of just following and chasing numbers, metrics, scaling opportunities, and all those things. And there are a lot of conversations that will be based around success, and I do strive to be successful in my life. But success doesn't look like dollar signs for me anymore. And I don't know if it ever really did, even though I struggle to admit that. So much of the conversations that I have had in the YouTube space, and YouTube is really the only platform that I really gravitate towards. So most of my content will be here and will remain here. It's just a space that I like sharing the most. So many of these conversations have come and gone in the YouTube space through this conversation of self-sabotage as I figured out what my purpose was. 444. And in videos in the past, and I will say this a lot, I've said this before, that will come out of me. And you might not be able to follow that paper trail anymore because those videos are gone, but it's just a way that I'm recollecting, conversations from the past that are resurfacing in the accuracy of the now, present moment. I hope you guys aren't cleaning any spots we don't want recorded on YouTube. Lilith. Hi. I went through a dark night of the soul pretty intensely when I moved back to the Midwest, where I'm at currently in my life. There is this beautiful home out in Iowa that I have gravitated towards a few times, and I really find this space to be a space between the worlds of healing and recovery. And so I made my way back here in 2023. Yeah, I always forget. I made my way back here in 2023. I was in a very dangerous mental and emotional place at my previous location. And if I had stayed there, I might not have made it through. And so I found my way back here and then spent the next 2 years going through this dark night of the soul. In a dark night of the soul, you really question everything. And the things that made sense previously, we just go like this for now while the kitties are doing their thing. The things that make sense, the things that made sense before didn't make sense anymore. In a dark night of the soul, you don't really have purpose. You can't really find your path. It's like you're in the old woods and it's foggy and nighttime and maybe there's a fingernail of a moon out there, but you really can't see the path forward. It really is a time that requires retrospection and pause. Think of the Hanged Man in the tarot, You're taking a moment to pause, or a couple years, and really recalibrate your spiritual center and everything that goes with. In my dark night of the soul, I went through periods where I had almost nothing. And it was really great because I have learned to find gratitude and peace and happiness without it being attached to an external object. And that was one of the things that I really learned in that time, because that was a intentional focus of mine to say, how can I be at peace and happy when I could very easily look in my bank account or look around me at the severe lack of tangible items that I could identify as part of my ego and self and identity, and I don't have those things. Can I still be in a place of peace and happiness and bliss in that space? And I was able to do that. Not every day. There were plenty of times that I struggled and maybe couldn't even get out of bed. But that didn't last weeks. It would be a day. And I do think that it's really important for us to find a balance from when life is throwing challenging curveballs at us left and right. Oftentimes we want to just be like, just stay positive, just focus on the positive. And I really struggle with that advice because I think that toxic positivity is dangerous and it triggers the shadow self by not allowing expression. And it also doesn't open up or hold space for truth or vulnerability. So I personally prefer to try to remain positive, but when my centers are demanding to be heard, and I can't, my mind just keeps going back to it, then it's important to feel the feels. I allow myself to feel the feels. I do a lot of journaling. That's how I process through a lot of things. That's how I work around my goals. That's how I recover from disappointment. It's how I navigate change. It's one of the main ways that I do that is avid journaler. I lost my train of thought. But yeah, you don't want to stay there. You don't want to stay in negative spaces. Feel the feels, and then remind yourself that you are capable, and you are valuable, and you are worthy, and that you're only in competition with yourself, etc., etc. You know, so many of these conversations will be customizable to your life, your priorities, your goals, your practices, your routines. 12-12. Today in my meditation, I decided to do a self-Reiki session. I have taken a little bit of a break in my Reiki practice. I'm taking a break. My intention is to take a break for the entire year without the brainstorming plan at all to share of who I am and what I do with others. I think that this year is really important for me to reimagine and recreate my own magical and soul-based routines. And so, you know, whatever pace and whatever practice that looks like, the goal has to just be for impressing myself only. So I haven't done too much within my Reiki practice, but today really felt aligned to do a self-Reiki session. And I didn't have any intentions going into that session as far as what the focus would be. It was just that I wanted to sit down in meditative space, and my intuitive mind came forward with a message from Spirit that said, self-Reiki sounds great right now. Let's do it. So I've been really struggling to identify in 2026, after 38 years of life, what my purpose is right now. There's been a lot of talk in the practitioner, channeler, magical spaces about being between the worlds and planting the seeds and really stepping into that higher timeline. And I think about my own life and the many experiences that I've already had, the different goals that I've had, the different things that I've done that could be defined as purpose. But in 2026, I sit here and think, am I truly living and embodying fully my purpose at this time? And there are some aspects that are a yes to that question, but there are some aspects that are a no. So, like when you ask your heart or soul a question, your body will give you that answer, or your intuition will whisper something subtly to give you like a yes or no. I often, my natural clair is clairvoyance, so I'll see in my mind's eye like a yes or a no. And so with that question, it kind of teeter-totters back and forth. But there is an aspect of my life that I know is missing from my soul purpose. Now, of course, we're going to evolve and grow and develop over time. So some of these conversations, the expectation has to be allowing change. Things change. We change. And being okay and giving ourselves permission to change along our soul's path and journey and purpose and all of those things is important. Sometimes I'm so focused on change that it's like I miss the path. So that's part of where this conversation goes for me. But in this Reiki session today, I saw a light being that had the feet of a bird, which was really interesting. I haven't seen like an angelic form with like the feet of a bird before, so that was pretty cool. And then I heard from my spirit guides, develop the self and share with others, and the rest will follow. There's something that my manager in real life, in my day job, told me recently. And this person said, you always want it to be pretty. It has to look a pretty way before you execute. And I think that that is very true and is anchored in fear-based mentality. If the process has to be perfect before I jump in or devote myself to it, then the anxiety and stress to begin can be a little bit much. And then I might not do it as often. Let me know if you also struggle with some of those things. And I think part of my developing of the self and sharing with others has looked like that too. Do I feel like I have to be perfect? Do I feel like I have to be a master in order to share of myself, in order to hold space for the soul? And if so, why? Why? Because I'm too wrapped up in the self-importance of ego and not realizing that the goal is just to hold space and the rest will follow. So today, for this video's preparation, normally I would look at the background and try to clean things up, at least in my headboard space. And for today, I was like, I'm going to leave it messy. I'm going to leave it realistic because that is the reality of my life. The reality of my life is there's a pile of clothes on the bed. And so Maya, my adorable white cat right here, is like, for me, I'll be right there, And I could disrupt her to have a more presentable backdrop, but who cares? Nobody cares. Only I care for appearances, which is fake. Develop the self, share with other, the rest will follow. I think that is such a perfect purpose for my soul. And I'm so grateful that that came through today, because it really just is a confirmation or a permission slip from me to It's like, it's right here, and I'm like flirting with it. Support, nurture, comfort, soothe. To soothe myself within my own developmental practice and be in a space where I can still reach out and connect in the community space, which is very important to me and something that I've struggled with because of my rigid mentality within certain expectations for how I wish other souls interacted with mine. And that's okay. So if you're somebody who has struggled to identify your soul's purpose or calling, there might be certain practices that help you come back to center that can bring forth that clarification for you. Sometimes the act of surrender is what helps get us there. The intention of, I'm just going to sit down and be, instead of having an intention, right? So sometimes I feel like I have to have, it has to look beautiful. I have to have a plan. I have to have talking points. I have to have the space perfect. I have to be prepared. All of those things do place some aspect of control on our receptivity and allowing of intuitive messages from our higher selves and different guides and guardians to bestow their wisdom upon us, because we are controlling in some aspect what it needs to look like. That doesn't mean, of course, that ritualistic prep work is bad by any means. You know, setting the stage, setting the space, with whatever that looks like, whether it's just clearing out the clutter, lighting some incense or a candle flame, you know, getting your, like I have a meditation pillow that I sit on, you know, getting situated in your space. Some of those things are self-soothing, but sometimes they can also make us non-verbally demand big news or no news from our spirit team because we've put forth this effort. And that could possibly be misguided practice on our end. Today I had no expectations. I had no plan. I just surrendered. I just allowed what needed to come through to come through. And I finally got the clarification that I have been seeking for months. It was very interesting. In this meditation, I also clearly saw dragons flying in the sky. I work with dragons in a magical and astral and interdimensional way to create healing and transformation both within myself and on this planet. And so they will be a regular part of the conversation on this platform for sure. And I saw them flying in the sky. And I thought, what an awesome thing that would be to see in real life. But I quickly got the message that we would not see that with our human eyes because man is a conqueror and has incredible tendencies for violence and destruction. And they are not safe to be seen by human eyes. But they are amongst us again on this planet. There are people that have spoken about, and I personally have connected with the fact that they did remove their presence from our space for a time. Not to say that they were never present amongst different practitioners and magicians and occultists and what have you. But their presence is returning more so in this space. But we can't see them. The majority of us could not see them with our human eyes. Because if everybody were able to perceive mystical creatures with their human eyes, like dragons and unicorns, then they would seek to destroy them and hang them on their walls like a trophy. Which, if you look around at society, makes sense. I have been connecting very strongly with unicorn energy. I actually bought this little unicorn statue last month, I believe, or January. Makes sense. We're in the year of the fire horse now, and fire horse plus Magick equals unicorn in some aspect. Could, Pegasus energy and stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that those who have their sights set on uncovering and discovering the hidden truths and depths of magic and mystery cannot see these beings. So much more is possible than we realize, and that we have realized in the past based on what we have experienced thus far. We are absolutely in a time where the pathway and timeline to manifestation has quickened. What we truly wish and desire is manifesting faster. I have seen this happen 4 or 5 times within the last month or two in ways that I wouldn't expect. There was a situation that happened very recently that somebody in my human life was making me super frustrated and has made me super frustrated, but I have to deal with this person. And I was like, oh, I hope this happens. And I don't even care because you're a bitch. And it did. And where I hope that would happen wasn't anything that would necessarily harm this person. Inconvenience, yes. Harm, no. But in the area where I had made that wish was an area that nothing changed. The same things that always happen and had one outcome happened, but had a separate outcome based on my wish. And that has happened multiple times. Now, of course, I did get a humility check this morning afterwards, watching a video on YouTube from some creators that I really enjoy. And in this video, they were saying, be careful what you're wishing upon others, because don't forget that what you wish will come back to you, and especially so in this time. And so we really shouldn't be wishing misfortune of any kind on other people, no matter how much they annoy us. And I was like, ugh, I know, true, but it just goes to show that the timeline for manifestation and our wishes coming from thought and ether into physical reality is a lot faster than what it used to be. So just be mindful of that. If that's something that you've also noticed, I'd be curious in what context you've seen that. But I've really, really struggled. So I was very clear in I wish that this wouldn't happen, that you want to happen because you are annoying the shit out of me, you horrible bitch. I had clarity in that situation. But when it comes to my own life and my own desires for what my life can look like, I do struggle with clarity. And I think that my gratitude practice may have been a part of that. Just because I'm so grateful for what I'm currently experiencing in my day to day, that it's really hard for me to be like, I really wish that this were my reality, with enough clarity to manifest like that. And those other examples have manifested. And I will say that, the things that have manifested haven't been things to inconvenience others, like the example that I gave today. But I do lack clarity when it comes to myself, when it comes to what I wish would manifest for my own life. So that's something that I'm working on personally. But developing the self, that is the main conversation for today. And we just let this conversation evolve as my higher self wanted to share points that I have experienced in my life recently. But developing the self is huge. In whatever way that looks like. It's so much easier for us to be distracted, be addicted, be numb, look for ways to escape and hide, place blame, instead of being honest about what we desire and put a plan into place to start making movement in the things that are actually important for us to develop within ourselves, to carve out the time and space, and to have discipline and a routine that we repeat, so that way we can start to see progress in this space. And especially to do so without any sort of dopamine reward. So my friends, if you are somebody who is also working on developing the self, let this be a permission slip, if anything. You don't need a reward. Your reward is your progress. Your reward is what life looks like as you become more and more in love with your own journey and your own efforts, right? So those were just some of the things that I wanted to share in today's video. Oh, you're so cute. Let me pet you. If you enjoyed this conversation, then don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this YouTube channel, so that way you can stay with videos as they are released weekly. If you have any thoughts around some of the points that we brought up today, I invite you to share those thoughts down in that comment section below, so that way we can continue this conversation. Thank you so much for being present with me today. I truly feel the portal. I feel in portal space when I share messages like this with you. Even though we are apart, there is magic and healing and energy boost in these words. that we've shared today, and in your thoughts and heart as you receive and think about them and how they apply to your life. So, thank you. All right. Well, this is Mina. I will see you next time. Stay wild and spooky, but most of all, stay magical. All right. Until then, bye.